Welcome to Psychic Holistic Spotlight. Tonight, our guest is Roland Comtois, and co-hosting with me is Kathy Medeiros, and I am Josie Way. We're doing things a little upside down today. Roland, I thought it would be wonderful if we could talk a little bit about your travels and some of the interesting cases, cases isn't the right word. Some of the interesting experiences of people's lives changing for the better because of understanding there is a heaven, understanding that their loved one is well, understanding that they'll be all right.
Yes. I had a woman come up to an event and said to me, she leaned over and said, I just want you to know that next year you'll be channeling me. And I said, why? She says, well, I have a terminal illness. She was in her early 30s and said, I don't have much time. So I want to know that there's something else and something more. And I offered her messages of support and love and healing. A year later, I walk into the same venue, and that same woman is there. And she came up to me and said, I'm doing better. And I said, that's fantastic. And she said, I've fallen in love and I'm happy. And we went on to have this amazing conversation. The next year, the woman shows up and is heartbroken. And she sat there, and I gave her messages about the love of her life who died unexpectedly. The year later, the woman is in another room somewhere, and she says, I don't really have much more time now. And she goes on to tell me how her life is coming to an end. And she said to me, will you help my kids when I go? And so I began this phone conversation with her after our last meeting. And I was talking to her as she was dying on many days. And I said to her that there is a heaven, that there's something beautiful and profound, that love is everlasting, and that there is no way that a love between your children and you will die. Your body will die, but you will survive. And she says, I know that. Am I going to be able to talk to my kids? And I said, do you love them? And she said, I do love them. Do you love them with all your heart? And she says, I do. I said, well, that love is more powerful than anything else. 3 months ago, I'm at the gravesite with her 3 kids and her mother and her sister praying. And all of a sudden, the trees started to move very weirdly. Some people even saw rays of light that weren't there before. The kids knew that their mother was there. The mother was sending signs to the kids because love cannot and does not die. I absolutely believe this, Josie, that I'm the fortunate one here. I get to step out there and walk into a life. And maybe it's a life for a short moment of time. Maybe I'm there with them for minutes. That's about it. But I have the opportunity to be there with them and to experience something that is based in love. Just like with this woman who I became very close with and consulted with her as she was dying, really. And then her kids and her family. And so I feel very blessed to be able to walk the path and tell the story that I understand, a story that always says that love is everlasting.
Yeah, and I should refresh for the audience that may not know, you come from a background of nursing, and there you were able to heal people some of the time physically and help some cross over. But now you're helping to heal them physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually.
And what I've been seeing in the last year is that people really need healing.
Yes.
It's pretty astounding to me, and I can kind of gauge that by doing this for many years. That the last year and a half, 2 years, 2014, 15, 16, have really been intense years for people.
Yeah.
And grief has been overwhelming, and loss of all kinds have been overwhelming. Restructuring lives and redoing things and starting over. And people that have been sitting before me have been broken in millions of pieces. But being in a room with other people and feeling the energy begins to put the pieces back together. And I feel very fortunate to be able to walk that path with them.
Yeah. Your annual thing that I went to this year for grieving,
Yes.
that you reach out to everybody. It's a wonderful, wonderful venue to help people with healers that are there, and everything is included, and it's very reasonable, and it is very, very healing.
I think it's time that we stand strong and united. If you look at, and I don't want to talk about American politics really, but if you look at what happened in our country in the last year, it divided and broke in many pieces. And if it's dividing and breaking on those big pieces, what is it doing to the individual? What is it doing to that one person who's trying to find their way? It shakes you to the core, because it was ruthless and negative and scary on every level, right? And it's not about who you believe in politically, it's what it did to us. It's what it did to the individual. And I think we have an opportunity, you do here on this show for sure, and I do out there on the road, is really to bring people back to that oneness within them through the spiritual teachings, through the experience of love, through the storytelling, because it helps to bring us back together somehow, And so it's been divisive and unsettled for 2.5 years. People have been feeling very broken and frightened. We have to stand beyond that and move forward through that pain and suffering. And I think that experiences like this give the people out there an opportunity to step through what they're experiencing.
Why do you think, though, that there's a lot more healing that needs to be done in the last couple of years?
Say that again, please.
Why do you think there's more healing that needs to be done in the past couple of years versus the previous years that you've
Well, I think something changed several years ago that caused us meaning humanity, us, to become separate. I hate to be it's not a cliche to me, but I don't believe in separation. I believe in the sense of being united, and I think that we've become more separate. Some people have had tunnel vision and can't see beyond, right? This is why I love doing these very big public events, because you go beyond your own pain. You reach your hand out to someone who's suffering, and that sense of humanity and that sense of uniting is reconnected in some way. And so I think there's been a lot of regret, a lot of grief about losses of many kind, and that many kinds. And the idea of being separate became our mantra instead of the idea of being united.
And with separation comes fear.
Absolutely. With separation comes fear, comes
Which blocks
expectation,
love.
comes all kinds of things, negative energies, which keep us from our true self. There's only one mission here. There's only one reason why you're here right now, why you're out there even watching. There's only one reason: to learn. Okay, now there's 2, to grow. Okay, there's 3, to love. There's 4, to expand and to become part of the experience.
And to share.
And to share that, absolutely. Yeah, to share what you're going through, what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, and what you're knowing, because that helps someone else to take a step forward. I often refer to these major events that happen in the world that cause us, like 9/11 and like there's just these terrible things that are happening all over the country and all over the world. They remind us how vulnerable we are. They remind us how human we are. They remind us how connected we are. And when we have those things, we become a greater force of love. We become a greater force of energy by being who we truly are meant to be. And I think these experiences allow us to do that.
Now, have you, have you seen like a more diverse type of people, though, that's more open to receiving messages?
That's a great question. There are, I will say this, Yahoo, there are more men coming. There are more men coming, more than they have ever come to my events in the last year.
That's wonderful.
More men. There are more young people coming, very young and very old people coming. And there was a woman, 85 years old, coming to my event. She said, she's like this. She's giving me the once-over, right? She says, I want to check this out. Like she's experiencing something for the first time. And I said, well, lady, it's not like trying lemon meringue pie, but it's okay. It's about opening yourself up to the possibility. And so people have come, different backgrounds, different religious beliefs, different faith beliefs, just a vast array of different kinds of people are coming because the interest in knowing that there is something more, the interest in knowing that there's love after a life after this, that there's something beyond here, has become a very important topic for us here.
Yeah.
It's all about that connection, feeling like you're not separated, like you're with something, like a greater purpose.
Right. I think we do better when we're connected. I think we can achieve more things when we are aligned in some way. And I think that we have that opportunity. I don't mean to divert. I just want to share something with you that's been on my mind since I've been seeing you more frequently. And that is, I was asked at one of your other shows, what is it like to be a medium or inside the mind of a medium? And one of the things that I wanted to stress upon was that my mediumship to me is like I have a relationship with the spiritual world. And I say to the spiritual world, I'm ready to receive whatever it is you want to say, whatever it is that you need me to bring, I'm ready to receive that. So my experience with the spiritual world, the universe, God, the angels, the loved ones, all of that is built upon a relationship. So I say to them, okay, it's 11 p.m., I'm going to bed. I don't want or I say, it's 11 o'clock, I got to watch the news, or I have to watch some TV show that I like, or whatever it is, right? And I say, this is not the time to send me the messages. So I have a very organized way of spiritual communication, and it's by developing a relationship with that spiritual world. And I think one of the things that we should do if we want to be connected is develop these relationships, whether they're spiritual relationships or relationships in our lives. Those relationships help us to achieve what we're meant to do, as does the spiritual world. It allows us to be who we are by being truthful and connected and believing in something.
Yeah.
It's all
reaching
about
out.
It's all about having a relationship. So, often people say, well, don't you get tired? Don't you get exhausted? Well, I say to them, I'm not on from 5 to 7, I got to tell you a story. I'm driving down 95, right? And have you driven down 95 lately? It's crazy. And I'm white-knuckling all the way down to my destination, and I'm like, this is nuts, right? So I say to the spirit world, don't bother me while I'm driving. I have enough problems driving. I have 2200 vision. I can see with my glasses, but don't get close. Don't talk to me yet. So I'm driving, white-knuckling it, and all of a sudden I hear this voice in my head say, call your publicist right now. I said, I'm on 95, passing New Haven. The traffic is insane. I can't call her now. So here I am talking about relationships. There was a breach of that relationship. Turns out, when I finally called my publicist, she was in desperate need of a message that needed to come. So the spirit world will communicate with us in ways that transform our lives, that transform who we are, as it did as I was driving down that highway.
Yeah. Well, in case of some emergencies, even without asking, angels can intervene if it's life-threatening.
Yeah, sure. Well, look, that's another interesting discussion to have, because some woman said to me once, if you really believe in angels, she said, and if you really believe in the afterlife, then why did my daughter die? How do you answer that question?
It's a tough one.
How do you answer that question, really? How do you answer that question?
I say, it depends on the age of the child, but I say that she was meant to be here only for that length of time.
Right. I mean, how do you approach that with someone like that, right?
It's very hard.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult. So, and she said to me, don't, she's like this right in my face, don't tell me that everything happens for a reason, right? That's her pain talking.
Yeah.
It's her grief and her despair talking in that moment.
I ask, what did you learn from your child? How did your life grow and improve and change? Yeah. What was the experience like?
You know what I did? I held her hand. I said no words. I said nothing, because I thought to myself, what can a guy like me say to a woman who's lost a child?
It's very hard.
What can I say? I know what I can do. I can love her. I can love her child. Mm-hmm. I can be open to receive. But what can I do?
You can also try to bring the child through, depending upon the age.
You can do anything.
Or a loved one that is taking care of the child on the other side.
But in that moment, what can we really do? You know, so I mean, I started this whole conversation about relationships because I think relationships, spiritually, physically, this life, that life, it's all important. But it's also important to set the boundaries when you're having a spiritual conversation, because the spirit will talk to us. They want to talk. When I'm in a room with people, they're all like, oh, God, I hope he picks me, right? And the spirit world is out there saying, oh, God, I hope he picks me. I mean, they're all doing the same thing at the same time, all wanting to bring their message forward, you know? And so developing a relationship and having some boundaries and then sharing the message is an important part of the story.
I think a big part of it is not being on 24/7. And a lot of people that don't do this work don't understand that you can't be on 24/7. Because we got to be here, we got to live our lives, you got to rest.
The walk, we talked a little bit about walking in two worlds.
Yes.
And you have to take care of yourself physically in order to be well spiritually.
The physical body, I'm starting to think now, and I've been a nurse for 30 years, boy, it really goes through a lot when you're a spiritual person, because you're integrating extraordinary energies, and at light speed you're integrating this energy, and trying to navigate that is not an easy task. And so sometimes it wears you down. I mean, I know that for myself. It's physically has worn me down in the past, and if I don't put a strict plan in place, my body's going to be very worn down from the experience.
I also find the opposite to be true at times. If I'm not doing too many readings, as the energy comes through me, it actually nourishes me.
I agree.
And I feel more uplifted.
I agree that it does that as well. But you still have to find the physical balance, because you know, if you're not eating well and hydrating and not taking care of yourself and not sleeping, you're not going to get clear messages. Never mind living. You're not going to get clear messages from the afterlife, from heaven, if you are distorted or distressed physically in some way. That you need to find that balance.
Right, yeah, like driving, for example, though, you know, I can't receive a lot of messages when I'm driving because it distracts me way too much.
Sure.
So a lot of times, okay, time for me to drive, guys. You know, help me out here, but, you know, I got to focus on this.
Right.
You know, and people have said to me, it's like, okay, what do you get from this? I'm like, I don't know. I'm not on right now. They're like, oh, I'm like, I'm not always on.
Yeah.
We can't always be on.
You cannot always be on. It's impossible. You know, at the beginning of the show, I felt this surge of energy move through the space, and to me, it felt like an army of angels and energy and ascended masters, and it felt very big to me. It made me
might have been my crew.
It made me very dizzy. It was very big.
I'm sorry.
No, it was a very big vibration of energy, and I had a sense that whomever would watch this is what I'm feeling, would get some peace. Because I imagine that there's somebody out there who needs a little bit of peace. who needs the support that's offered here. And so I felt this surge of energy come into the space, whatever it was, whomever. I'm not asking what it is, I'm just experiencing it for what it is. But I know that somebody out there, maybe many people, will need to feel the peace and come to some understanding that they can communicate with the other side as well. You know, that's my feeling.
Yeah, electronics, they've been finding can transmit. They've been doing with audio.
Sure.
Can transmit messages electronically. So hopefully we can transmit some of these energies as well.
I was doing a pilot TV show in the Bronx, and they summoned me and it was a TV show supposed to be about 4 mediums, or 4 people who do spiritual work, and we're in this very interesting place in the Bronx, and we're downstairs, and the camera crew is there, and we're all mic'd up, and we're getting ready to film another scene. We had just filmed scenes at some restaurants prior to this one. The minute they turned the cameras on, the cameras went nuts. I mean, they were flickering, and cameras like you have here in your studio. Things weren't working right. It was very insane and crazy. So electronics are certainly susceptible to the energetic stream. Audio, visual, lights. I mean, they're responsive to that, and they couldn't film this particular part of the show because of the electronic energy moving through the space. It's crazy.
Yeah. And maybe there was someone there that didn't want the show filmed there.
Well, you know,
a spirit.
I'm quite sure it was related to just energy, like spirit, like you're saying, or energy. But we didn't film there. We had to move to another room. I know we were in a room that was very sacred. They had these magnificent statues of goddesses and gods from every religion in this room, and roses everywhere. It was in the basement of a man who does very powerful shamanic work, and he was part of this TV team that we were supposed to be. And so, you know, the energy was vibrating in that very sacred and spiritual place. So it's no doubt that the energy, the spiritual energy, can disrupt many things.
Yeah. As a small aside, spirit does communicate to us electronically a lot of times when they want to reach us or help us in some way. By turning lights on and off.
Sure.
And how spirit works with me lately is when I have to be somewhere and I get wrapped up in something else, they make the phone ring and there's nobody there.
Yeah. What about EVPs? I mean, you know, you hear voices of your loved ones, and so there are multiple ways that the spirit will attempt to communicate with us. We will hear, see, feel that resonates with us. I happen to feel it on many levels. Some people just see things. Some people just feel things. Some people hear things. Well, it's all fine on an energetic perspective. It all is fine, however you communicate or connect with the spiritual world.
The one thing that I found once I started doing this is I did have to educate myself. The more I learned, the more ways they're able to communicate through me to help others. So I learned about crystals and flower essences and you know, things like that. Some people learn about herbs, and some people learn various forms of healing. There are numerous.
There's also mirrors can be used as portals though too. It can bring your attention though too, you know what? But with
mirrors?
Mirrors. As with anything else, you got to be careful though with the boundaries and what you're bringing in too. Because Mother Mary sometimes comes through one of my mirrors though too. But she comes in as Our Lady of Guadalupe. But she comes in very dark, so that's how she gets my attention that way too. You know, have you had any experiences with mirrors or like reflective surfaces?
Not me.
No,
not at all.
No, I tried scrying and even the crystal balls, and it's a blank for me.
Yeah, I have a hard time with the.
But I think that we all have our way of having a spiritual conversation or spiritual communication, and if that works for you, it works for you. I've never had that experience myself. I've seen reflections in windows and things like that, but we all have our our way of having the conversation, the spiritual conversation.
I have found in the recent year ways to build my relationship through classes, ways to build my relationship with the spirit world and expand my connections. And there are quite a few wonderful teachers out there.
There are.
That can help you do that.
Yes. There are some very wonderful teachers, for sure, who do amazing things, who are spiritual leaders, who help push humanity closer to some understanding. Absolutely true. And I think that we all, as I have said 1,000 times, we all are spiritually connected. We're all mediums. We all have something within us. And every book I've ever read said that everybody has a gift, and it's figuring out what that gift is and making it something special, making something incredible.
The Bible does say that Jesus said, all these things and more ye can do.
Sure. Corinthians 12:4 says everyone has a gift. You have a gift, so fulfill that gift. So when people say, oh, this is what you do, I said, have you read Corinthians 12:4 lately? And they get a little upset with me, but the fact is, it's one place. The Tibetan Book of the Dead talks about this, talks about universe upon universe upon universe of communication. So it's out there, and we have to make a decision if we want to have the conversation or not.
Yeah, because interestingly, the first way they communicated with me is what I call guardian animal spirits. They came through with different shamanic. I had seen some cards, and so they started coming through with messages I could look up and understand.
That's a good thing. That's a great thing. That's a fantastic way for them to communicate with you.
Yeah, they when they want to get through, they do get through.
That's for sure.
Yeah, even if they have to go through a few different ways to get to you.
There's not one route. Hey, I don't have one way to go home. I can go 95. I can go the back roads. I can take a highway, then get off at exit 10 or whatever it is. There are many ways to get where I have to go. There's many ways to have a
get through a spirit.
Many ways for us to have the conversation. So if you are feeling frustrated and you haven't figured out what's the right way, give it time, because you'll figure out what's the best way to get where you need to go, for sure.
Yeah. At this time, I want to say thank you to everyone who's watching us. Thank you, Miss Kathy, dearest. Thank you, Roland, for being with us again.
I appreciate it very much.
And sharing yourself with us. And we can get back to chatting a little bit more.
Well, again, as I was just saying a second ago, there are many ways to get where you need to go. It's up to us to make the decision and not get frustrated if you don't make the big spiritual connection right away. Give yourself time and let it happen naturally and gradually, and don't put yourself under any undue stress.
I know a short story. I know of a girl that her husband was developing very well spiritually with mediumship, and she just didn't seem to have it. And she explored different things, and then come to find out she took a class in the Akashic Records.
Oh.
She sees full videos of the past lives.
Wow.
And that's unusual.
Wow. Well, everybody has their own way to get there.
Yeah,
That's the beauty of it.
That's the way she shares her spiritual messages.
That's good.
To help people,
That's
to heal from the past.
That's a good way to do it. We all have our way. We all have a gift. We all have a connection, and we have to nurture and foster that connection and make it be something that humanity benefits from the experience, and that's how I see it.
Yeah, because there are a lot of things out there that are only physical, but even if you can't do something spiritual in your physical job, there's plenty of other time to search for your spiritual self.
And what I've noticed too, no matter how the message gets delivered, the person that needs it will always get the message,
Always.
Yes.
regardless of how it gets delivered to them.
Always.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Spirit works wonders.
Yes.